This is the 2021 Giant Trance X Advanced Pro 29.1. I don't know why it takes so many words to describe what this bike is, but another description could be awesome, all around, trail bike. I would use those as ways to describe this. This is a bike that I desperately wanted for myself for this upcoming year after seeing the announcement about this new model in the Giant line. Unfortunately, I probably won't get one because there just aren't enough to go around, and we will put our customers first. So, what's the magic with the Trance X 29 in this case? So the Trance has been a long-standing bike in the Giant lineup. It has been one of our most popular bikes for probably the last 15 years or so. The Trance X in this case fits into a lineup that already has a Trance 29 and a 27.5 inch wheeled Trance. When we look at this Trance X 29, what that means is that we've got 135 mil rear travel and 150 millimeter travel fork. And that X is basically implying that this thing is a more extreme version of a Trance. I would just say that this is the definition of what a modern trail bike should be. And that is every bit as good a descender as a climbing bike. And in this case, somehow, it's an evenly matched climber and descender, yet on the descending side, it is somehow an even better descender than what it should be, I would say. And that is due to the geometry on this guy. This is pretty much at the front of the pack for modern geometries combined with value, combined with lightweight, really nice component spec, and a beautiful paint job. So on this guy, I will show you some of the details, I will talk about the geometry, and I will make you wait until later in the video to get the weight because a lot of people seem to want that. And I'm trying to get people to watch the videos for longer, so that's my way of tricking you into that. Anyways, we'll get into the spec then right now. So this guy has the brand new SRAM GX drivetrain on here. So that means that derailleur is a little bit of a new shape, and that cassette is the new SRAM GX cassette, which means that it goes from 10 teeth at the small end to 52 teeth at the big end. So if you're comparing this bike to the Advanced Pro 2, that derailleur goes from a SRAM NX on the Pro 2 to this GX, and then that cassette switches from an 11 to 50 tooth range to a 10 to 52 tooth range. So you're actually getting a lower and a higher gear sort of expansion when you step up to the SRAM GX. That name that I talked about, I'm just going to jump around. That name, when you see the Advanced Pro 2, whenever you see Advanced with a Giant, that means carbon. Whenever you see Advanced Pro, that means front and rear triangle being carbon, where there are some advanced full suspension bikes that actually use an alloy rear end, which would be the case on, say, an advanced version of the 27.5 Trance. So super sleek lines in this guy, a very nice paint job, just trying to show you how this super glossy paint job and really nice frame profiling looks up close. Going back to the spec on this guy, this has the Giant TRX2 carbon wheels on here. So for this bike at this $65.99 price point, to get into carbon wheels, we're kind of stepping into a pretty special territory for getting a GX level build, the level of suspension that we'll talk about in a moment, and getting into carbon wheels is, that's a lot of value packed into a bike. A lot of comparable bikes, you may get similar suspension and drivetrain, but that would still be on alloy wheels. So we're basically getting an extra $1,000, I'd say, of value on this guy. Along with those awesome wheels, we have tires that show that Giant is paying attention to what people are doing out there in the real world. These are the Maxxis Dissector 29 by 2.4 tubeless tires, and they are set up tubeless. Basically out of the box. We get sent the bikes without tubes, with the valves and sealant, and we just have to put the sealant in and make sure that it's holding the seal, and then you're good to go. We have some really nice chainstay protection with this ribbing, which seems to be becoming a popular option on a lot of bikes now, is more than just basic chainstay protection. The ribbing, the general idea with that is it helps to calm the chain as it's bouncing around rather than just letting it get into sort of a frequency of bouncing. We've got SRAM Descendant 6K cranks on here, a 30-tooth SRAM style narrow wide chain ring. You can see when SRAM does narrow wides, they do a little bit of extra tooth profiling, which is supposed to hold the chain that much better and also reduce some of the noise that you can get in some cases on a narrow wide setup. A highlight on here and an upgrade from that Pro 2 model is we now are into a Fox Float DPX2 rear shock. That DPX2 means we're getting into that piggyback there. That means that we've got more damping fluid, which means more consistent performance for this guy over longer, bumpier descents. This shock will have a red knob over there, which gives us rebound adjustment. It's an air shock, of course, and that blue knob is giving us something we can just reach down and firm up or open up. Though I would say that a bike like this that's equipped with Maestro suspension, one of the things that you learn to love about Maestro is that you end up just riding your bike in the open setting there and letting your really active, efficient suspension do its job on climbs and on descents. This dropper post on here is a giant contact dropper. That saddle is a giant Romero saddle. It's a new saddle that Giant's using on a bunch of their bikes this year. And I would say that it's quite a popular one compared to the old saddle, which was a little bit too sleek and unpadded. Now this is a little bit more like what people are expecting. And it's got a nice cupped shape, which I think that goes along well with kind of this modern geometry with a steeper seat tube angle. Just your general seating position, I find that a cupped saddle, something that has a little bit of a scoop behind your bum, helps things to be really comfortable. We have room for a full-sized water bottle on the down tube here. We have really nice protection underneath the down tube, and it wraps up far enough that it should prevent any kind of rocks that you're going over from damaging the frame. There is also, it's not obvious, you might just be able to make this out, but there's some really thick 3M type material that actually runs up into the area if you are shuttling. It's a good shuttle guard that's only noticed if you actually feel the down tube, but there is some shuttle guard protection there, which is always nice to see. There's that really nice, sleek Maestro top link, which is carbon. So the only thing on this frame that isn't carbon is that bottom link there. So all of about 5 inches of linkage on this bike is alloy. The rest is carbon. One of the things that we see on a Trance X is this flip chip. So that's going to give you an adjustable geometry. That basically changes bottom bracket height by 10 millimeters and changes your seat and head angle by 0.7 degrees, which doesn't sound like a big number, but it is an amount that would be noticeable. Going on to our fork spec here, another highlight is a Fox 36, and this is a Performance Elite version of a Fox 36. Basically, if you see Performance Elite, and you see a grip to damper up top here, that means we're talking pretty much, this is the equivalent of a factory fork just without the Kashima coating on there. So we got the nice stealthy black that goes along with the overall look of the bike, and we get that high speed, low speed compression that and a damper that's really well regarded. Front tire on here, a Maxxis Minion DHF, and this is in a 2.5 width. So the idea between having a DHF on the front and a dissector on the back is that front tire is going to be all about basically your descending cornering, having a really nice cornering knob on there. Basically, front tires are mostly about descending. Rear tires are mostly about kind of getting fast rolling. So that is why that is such a popular combination on there. We have Giant's Contact SLR handlebar on here. So this is a carbon handlebar, so another nice spec on there. Their own contact stem. Their dropper lever, which is a pretty nice shape and position. Giant's tactile lock-on grips. These are a nice feeling, narrower profile lock-on grips. And the SRAM G2R brakes on here, which are a 4-piston brake. We honestly haven't had hands-on experience with these brakes. The guide that these are basically replacing had probably more haters than lovers, but I will trust in SRAM that they are always trying to improve things, and hopefully this takes more cues from the code as far as performance than from the guide. We have 203 front rotors on here, or 203 on the front at least. The rear rotor is 180 millimeter. Through axles, of course, front and rear. This side will show off that patented Maestro short dual link design a little bit better than showing from the drive side where I was before. There's that front rotor. So that's pretty much the spec on this guy. I think for $65.99, all the things that we look at on here are pretty much what you expect to see on a mid $6,000 bike. And this is a Canadian price, remember. Not a US price, so please don't heckle me in the comments that we're selling this for more than what the US MSRP is. We are in Canada. So let's talk about angles, and then I will tell you the weight. So I'm going to quote the slack angles because it seems like that's where most people feel like they would ride this bike. In slack position, seat tube angle 77.2 degrees. Head tube angle 65.5 degrees, and quite a generous 486 millimeter reach. So that reach number, if you don't know, that is if you go directly up from the cranks and then you measure straight forward to the center of the top of your head tube there. That is your reach number. So you see a lot of companies talking about reach numbers on a size large of about 480 millimeters. So this is a little bit longer. What that's going to do is give you stability and allow you to reach out or stretch out just a little bit more on climbs. But that number also doesn't take into account that when you're talking about a 77.2 degree seat angle, the actual feel from your seat to your handlebars, even with a long reach number, you don't feel like you're reached out much at all, because that is still comparable to what a large fit would be in an old traditional. Your whole body is just kind of tilted forward more. The magic of that is that it's getting you more centered on the bike for climbs, so you find that you can keep your body in a more relaxed position on climbs rather than pulling your face down towards the stem to try and center your weight to not have the bike wheelie on you. Weight on this guy, 29.4 pounds. That is a very respectable weight these days. Cracking under 30 pounds on anything that is a usable trail bike that you would maybe favor descents on is a pretty magical number to get under, it seems. And they have done it. If you wanted to lose weight off this bike, I don't see much in the way of low-hanging fruit, like real easy stuff that you could do. Maybe with the exception, I think that front 30-tooth chainring, I think that's a steel chainring. You could probably take, I don't know, 100 grams off the weight of the bike by going with an alloy version of that. Other than that, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few people switching out stems to a little bit shorter stem if they were a more descent-oriented rider, which so many people seem to be these days. But otherwise, this bike is keeping true to that as good on the ups as it is on the downs. Did I tell you it's 29.4 pounds? I think I did. Another thing, all of these bikes except for the size small are using 170 millimeter cranks. The small uses 165. So this is one of the developments we've seen over just the last year or two, is 170 being used even on large sized bikes. And the idea with that is they can keep the bottom bracket low while still slightly reducing your likelihood of pedal strikes on rocks if you shorten the cranks. I'm 6'1" and I've been using 170 cranks. I have very long legs. I've been using 170 cranks, and at very first it feels a bit odd. Once you're used to it, there's a lot of science out there basically saying you're not losing power, you're not losing performance, you're just able to pedal through a few more sections of trail without catching your pedals. And I think I'm a huge fan of that concept of either raising bottom brackets a little bit from some of them getting ridiculously low, or shortening cranks, but something to allow you to pedal through more of the chunder. So this is the 2021 Giant Trance X Advanced Pro 1. We've been looking at a size large. It's a $65.99 bike in Canada, a carbon trail bike with 135 rear, 150 front travel, and this is an awesome option for somebody who enjoys riding loops. You go after Strava times that have lots of ups and downs, and this guy might even allow you to chase some of those descent Strava times as well. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next bike.